Recording in progress.
Welcome to the City Council special meeting this Monday evening, April 1st. I now call this meeting to order. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
With pleasure, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Hedges.
Here.
Councilmember Lee.
Here. Recording in progress.
Councilmember Lorraine.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Newsom. Here. Mayor Diaz-Nash.
Welcome to the City Council special meeting this Monday evening, April 1st. I now call this meeting to order. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll. We are excited to be here in person with options for those who choose not to be in person to participate virtually. There are several ways to participate. For those attending in person, please complete a yellow request to speak slip and hand it to the clerk. If participating remotely, use the raise your hand feature in Zoom and you will be called on at the appropriate time. If calling in via phone, press *9 to raise your hand, and when called upon, press *6 to unmute. These options for public comment will remain available until I close the public comment period for each specific item. We will begin this special meeting by convening into closed session for 2 items. Item number 1, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, and item number 2, conference with labor negotiators. Deputy City Clerk, before we convene to closed session, do we have any requests to speak on those items?
Madam Mayor, we have no request to speak on those items.
All right, well then we will convene into closed session. Thank you.
I'm going to stop by the restroom on the way in.
Hi, Shauna. This is Martin from the clerk's office. Just wanted to confirm that the council have gone into closed session, and you should be able to join via Microsoft Teams.
Oh, okay. I will switch over to Teams.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Do you normally print out?
Are we good? No. It's my water. And we are now reconvening from closed session. And our next item in the study session is to receive a presentation from the San Mateo Police Department Homeless Outreach Team. And we are very excited to hear all about it. So over to you.
Sure. In the interest of time, I'll be very brief.
Okay.
As you can imagine, challenges regarding homelessness are a frequent call for service for the police department. The police department recognizes that these challenges cannot be solved through enforcement alone, if enforcement at all. Handcuffs is not going to address these challenges. The city of San Mateo has always been proactive in addressing issues surrounding homelessness. The Vendome House is a perfect example. So we've always had a very strong approach and compassionate approach in dealing with this issue. We've been very lucky over the last several years to have a retired police officer, Dave Johnson, as a part-time homeless outreach worker. But what's happened over the course of the last several years is our downtown police officers have kind of become de facto homeless outreach workers, and it's taken them away from their duties to address other issues impacting the downtown. So a couple of years ago, we got together and proposed a program with the city to establish our own homeless outreach team, which has worked out very, very well. Oftentimes, we're competing for resources with other cities within the county. This allows us to focus on San Mateo-specific needs. We're very proud of the program. We have two absolute pros in Victoria and Dave, and I'm just going to turn it over to them to talk about what they do. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us today. Just real quick. Is that better? Perfect. Just a real quick introductions. We're going to try to make this pretty quick because we have quite a few slides. But I was a police officer for San Mateo for about 10 years. And before that, I came from San Diego County. I was a downtown officer and did homeless outreach. I worked with Victoria, my incredible partner. She was a outreach worker for Life Moves, and we actually worked together doing outreach while I was a full-time officer. So when I came back part-time and then they opened up this civilian position, there was no better candidate, perfect person for this job as Victoria. So we're back to working together again, doing homeless outreach. So we are the homeless outreach team for the city of San Mateo. This is a screen of basically what we do. We triage homeless calls and referrals from dispatch officers and community partners. What that basically means is we're trying to get to be part of every homeless call or every homeless issue in the city that we possibly can within reason. And we will do that through getting dispatch calls from police officers, from park rangers, city employees, and then numerous community partners and members that we make contact with. Our intention is to try to be part of every process. We fill the gaps between services and client. That's a really big part of our job is filling the gaps. One example I always give for this when doing case management is being at some of the meetings where we're doing homeless outreach and having clients that are very challenging and resisting to our services. I was listening to a meeting and they had run into a problem with being able to get his identification, his California ID. And the case manager said, well, I'm going to have to exit him from this program because I can't get it done. So I was like, wait a minute, why don't we just put him in the car and take him to DMV and get his ID? Exactly the same mentality that Victoria has. So we will literally do that. If we run into a barrier, and there's so many examples of that, we will get that part taken care of instead of just having the process stop. We do support around shelter referrals, housing resources, case manage and conduct continue follow-ups. Working closely with challenging clients. That's a big part of our job, is the most challenging of clients. In this county, if you are interested in services, there's a lot of resources available to you. The easy clients who are cooperative are really not where we have to put a lot of our work into. It's the ones who are refusing services, and most of the time, that's because of mental health and often alcohol and drugs as a self-medication for these clients. That's where it really gets difficult. We have to make a lot of time, put a lot of time in establishing rapport. It can take 15, 20, 30, sometimes or more contacts before they trust us enough to be able to get them maybe to the next step. We work with amazing amount of community partners in this county. We have meetings with the homeless outreach team in the county, and we also have the field crisis team, which is a county team that deals with the most mentally health challenged clients in the county. Steve Wagstaff, the district attorney, is on it, the public defender. Last time I was on a meeting, there was over 70 people on this meeting representing every agency. And we deal with the most challenging of mental health clients, which is a huge overlap with our homeless community. We establish and network and maintain relationships with these partners. That's really what it's all about, is making sure that we continue to work collaboratively with everybody, because you never know who you're going to need to ask for help, and vice versa. They might ask for our help, and that's how we get a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff done. And then repeated outreach efforts to build rapport. As I said earlier, it can take sometimes even years really to finally get through to somebody and have that trust, and then suddenly the light bulb goes on and we're able to move forward where we hadn't been able to move forward before.
So what is outreach? We are outreach and we're not in reach. We spend the majority of our time in the field. It's about 80 to 90% that we spend daily looking for our clients experiencing homelessness. This is rain or shine, stormy, sunny outside. We are out there in the field. Our office space is literally our vehicles. We go to and from locating our clients and ensuring and offering services to them. They don't come to us, we go to them. That's what makes us really, really special. So we respond to dispatch calls, as Dave mentioned. We visit encampments all the time. We walk alongside of the freeway, overpasses, street outreach. We pull over to the sign when we identify a client experiencing homelessness. We're just out there offering services day in and day out. We receive community referrals and online reports. We follow up on those on a regular basis. We go to parking garages and tunnels, especially when it's raining outside. We see a lot of our clients in parking garages. We often go and we drive around there to locate them. And the most important one is rapport building. We make a number of contacts. We'll get tons of no's before we get a yes. And at that moment, we drop everything and we go. But we do this by consistency, compassion, and our hope is to build connection. What don't we do as the HOT team? We don't take enforcement. We don't share their information. We don't use the information for investigative purposes. And we don't force clients to take services. So on this slide, we work collaboratively with our community partners to provide supportive services to our most vulnerable clients experiencing homelessness. There isn't a one-size-fits-all in a case plan. The client is the center of everything that we do. We take a holistic approach to support clients around their overall functioning. So we may identify their behavioral health needs and taking them to detox. It's just our neighbor here in San Mateo. We get them into a program, a long-term program, to support them around their overall functioning. We try to increase their income, identifying employment, helping them get identification. Sometimes it's just an ID or a birth certificate. That's like the only thing holding them back. Transportation to and from medical appointments, court. We support the mental health diversion. We go and we bring our clients there. We remind them. We take them there. Probation. We work collaboratively with probation officers. Medical services as well. We have the street medicine team meeting us in the fields and helping them with their medical needs. But the hope is for them to get stable. The hope is for them to get housing. We support them around housing referrals, CES assessments, and yeah.
This is sort of the journey that we have, that we're on, and as the chief mentioned, in the past, the downtown unit had basically turned into a citywide homeless outreach team because it started off as basically downtown homeless, but then with all the expertise that you would get as an officer, you can't expect patrol to be able to pick up and handle the homeless calls outside of downtown, so started venturing out into into the other parts of the city, and you're still trying to deal with the hundreds of businesses downtown as a liaison officer. So that's where Victoria was brought in as a civilian outreach, and is perfect, kind of along the same lines as with the mental health clinician, getting someone in a civilian role to attack these problems. So the present way we do it now is the homeless outreach team handles the entire citywide homeless issues. Downtown's back to focusing on downtown. They do help us a lot still with the homeless contacts. They have the knowledge and expertise to deal with it. And then if it gets something beyond, it's going to be super time consuming, they'll hand it off to us. But a lot of times we're going to pick it up anyway because we're going to handle all the follow-ups. Clients and community partners are contacting officers more frequently. Our team is very well known, so people are increasingly contacting patrol officers to say, hey, we have a homeless person here. We've heard about this homeless outreach team. Or a lot of our clients don't have phones, so they might go to an officer and be much more comfortable now saying, could you please get a message to to the homeless outreach team? I'm at this location, I need assistance, I haven't been able to make a phone call, and then that information is relayed back and forth with the officers to us much more increasingly than it was before. Much more case management, referring and housing of clients. As an officer trying to juggle, downtown, as I was saying before, you can't get so deeply involved in some of this case management. That's what's so awesome about our team is that I've been teaching her the police side, she's teaching me the case management side. I'm basically a case manager now. I never thought I'd have that title before. The HOT responds to other than homeless calls for immediate interventions. A good example of this is you might have a domestic violence call. Someone's going to be given an emergency protective order and basically effectively immediately become homeless. So we don't just jump on the homeless calls. We will listen up to other calls, and officers will call us and say, hey, we have somebody who's about to become homeless immediately. What can you do to help this person? And that can be tricky sometimes with some of the county rules about residency and how long you've been homeless and things like that. Same with like disturbances, pending evictions. We will get calls from people saying, I'm facing an eviction, I don't know what to do. We will jump in on those calls and walk them through that process.
All right. So some of our data, so per quarter, we average about 200 total encounters for over 60 clients experiencing homelessness. This is per quarter. Since October of 2022, HOT supported about 17 clients into permanent housing. So that's not temporary, that's permanent, that's with the lease, that's guiding them through the whole entire process from start to finish. And currently, there's a handful of pending clients for permanent housing, Since October of 2022, HOT also supported over 120 clients into temporary shelter. That includes First Chance, that includes Palm Avenue Detox, and residential facilities for long-term support.
As far as calls for service, we pulled some stats that we were really interested to see what this is going to look like from 2021 to 2022. There was about 779 homeless calls for service, and then about 182 officers self-initiated homeless calls for service. So the homeless is dispatch calls coming from citizens typically, and the officer initiated is officers initiating that. From when we started as our team in October of 22 to October of 23, 1 year, the homeless calls dropped down to 568 calls, initiated down to 135, and our outreach team had a total of 526 documented outreach calls. Even more of a drastic number changes below, going from October of 20 to March of 2022. 1,209 homeless calls dropped to 782 when we started, and self-initiated from 190 to 147, but we had almost 1,000 outreach calls during that period of time. So what this indicates is that our proactivity and our getting on top of things in a self-initiated way has reduced the homeless calls for service and has reduced the officers being involved in the homeless calls, which is exactly what our intention is and what we're trying to do. Just a few success stories. We have so many of these, and we picked 3 for tonight. This is what it's all about. This is what drives us. As you can see from the pictures, the top one there, initials CL. This is a 72-year-old woman, significant mental health, really, really significant mental health, but a very sweet woman, had been staying in Central Park, had generated many, many calls for service that may have gotten to your level. And this is somebody that I had been working with for probably almost 10 years on and off, and Victoria as well. resistant to services due to mental health, but we have, our rapport building has been amazing. We contacted her sometimes almost on a daily basis, trying to convince her to move forward. There's huge paranoia, resistance to signing forms. We were able to get her into El Camino House, which was just an amazing feat, and she is currently thriving there. So she's off the streets in El Camino House, and we're working on permanent housing with her, which is still a challenge, but she is at least staying somewhere, not resisting it, not moving out, not back in Central Park. Another example is going to be LT. This is a pregnant woman who was sleeping under the overpass near Seal Point Park, had alcohol and drug challenges. That's usually, again, self-medicating for mental health, depression, and issues. Collaborated with the park rangers and contacted emergency service because she was getting close to having a baby and she was going to be homeless underneath this overpass to do that, which is not appropriate. She was admitted to the hospital with due to complications, worked together with CPS, and we were able to secure her a family shelter and eventually permanent housing with, she has maintained her sobriety and is in compliance with probation. This is permanent. She can stay there as long as for the rest of her life in this housing situation, and you can see from the picture, happy as can be. The third client, this is a JP, long-term homeless. We're talking several decades. When I came over from San Diego County in 2010 to this department, she was already well known by all of the officers, especially downtown. Very cooperative with us, but severe alcoholism, severe depression, generating calls for service, getting into fights sometimes, years and years and years, and a lot of mental health crisis calls. Again, got her into permanent housing after just working with her to the courts. She couldn't get to court on her own, and she would get warrants. I mean, she just really needed a lot of support, and now she's housed. We check up on her still regularly. That's part of what we do, because a lot of times the system will put someone into a housing situation, but there's not a whole lot of follow-up, and we've had several sad stories where people have lost that housing. So we try to keep a little bit of contact and keep that check and balances going, make sure that she stays in that housing, and she is just thrilled to be in her new housing situation. So this is just a slide that we usually do on our presentations, just because there's always a question of the best way to reach us if you have somebody experiencing homelessness. We always say the Samaritan House is actually the first step for people who are capable of getting there on their own. But the best way is really to call the non-emergency line, because we want to make sure that it's documented, that we can do follow-ups, and that it's going to come to us eventually. But if there's an immediate need, then we really need an officer to go out and maybe do a welfare check. If we're not working, an officer is going to make that first contact, and then they're going to refer that person to us. And then we, of course, collaborate with park rangers and city employees, and we have direct contact with them for these follow-up calls.
All right. So we want to truly thank our community partners. A big thank you, because we cannot achieve success with our clients without one another. It does take a village. Yeah.
This is a picture we took at St. Vincent de Paul on North B, one of our big partners that we've had for many, many years. And wanted to open up for any questions that anybody might have.
Well, thank you very much for past, present, and future efforts. The community is so grateful. So let me open it up to questions. Councilmember Hedges.
I was very curious, because it's difficult to gain trust just with anyone in this day and age. I've seen you at other events, listened to you, and I'm amazed at how you do this work. But what are the steps, if there is a steps you go through to gain trust, how do you do it?
One of the big things that we both do is that we really never give up on the client. And I learned a lesson a long time ago from a really challenging client when I was an officer. And inside, I had dealt with him for so many years, and the officer who had this position before me had dealt with him. I had gotten to the point where inside, I really kind of felt like it was just never going to happen. But I always presented on the outside that I hadn't given up. And I would say, hey, you want some help? Are you ready to do this yet? And one day, after many, many years, he took me up on it and said yes, and I was able to get him housed. And it changed my view of not only, I don't have to pretend anymore to not give up, because it just proved that if you just keep going, but the key is, even if you feel inside it's not going to work, you have to keep presenting to them that you're there for them every step of the way. And I know Victoria has an amazing ability just to keep that contact with them and show that you care, and you never know when that moment's going to come. So you just have to keep trying, and it could be 50, 100 plus times. It could be several years before it happens.
Yeah, I think just listening has a lot to do with it. Yeah. Because at times you'll find that somebody brings up something they need. As a labor organizer, a lot of times the way I gained trust was something somebody needed, total outside of the labor, being able to find ways to provide it.
Yeah. And I know that one of the questions we get a lot is measuring success, and it's not always about necessarily the end game. Sometimes just that little bit of forward momentum can be such a huge turning point. Just getting somebody an ID card, getting them into shelter for the first time after years, we consider that a success, even if it's not necessarily yet to be permanent housing at that point.
Yeah, I don't know what you did to all the folks that were living under 92, but they're housed somewhere.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, great. Councilmember Lorraine?
Thank you. I'll just try a question that that came to me, and I may not have it totally formed, but and perhaps the city manager can even help me a little bit, because I feel like we had heard a little bit about a service that I think maybe Life Moves may be introducing in the not too distant future that might be some kind of extra line. I appreciate from the presentation that it sounds like members of the public in the city of San Mateo, if they see somebody who might need some help, who looks as though they may need shelter, they can call the non-emergency line. I guess I'm just curious if there's any update that might happen later this year as a result of partnerships introducing anything new, or not.
So Life Moves that's actually the biggest outreach partnership that we have in this county, and they also do San Jose County. And recently they added a nighttime and partial weekend outreach, which is only available from the police department. So it's not, the public cannot call this number, but the officers can make that referral. So we have used that because we aren't working into the late evenings and we're not working on the weekends. So that has been a huge change that just occurred fairly recently, and we're still in the process of, using them as a resource. So we can say, hey, we're not going to be here. They're still in the evenings, we're missing them, and we'll refer it to a night outreach worker who can then go on a Friday or Saturday night and make that contact. And sometimes they can take that process all the way through, or we can pick it up and help them on Monday. So we work really closely with the teams that do that outreach. So that's been a huge benefit for us.
That's excellent news, because, to me, just as a comment, it seems to me like that would be only more reason for members of the public hearing this to feel good about calling the police department for assistance when people are in need of shelter, because even if the hot is not available at that moment, there are resources that the department is working on to align so that there's a humane response that can really serve them in many ways. And Mayor, if I might bring in a comment now, or if we're going to have a quick lightning round of comments after questions.
We'll have a quick lightning round afterwards. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Lee?
It's so wonderful to see you, and I'm so happy that that our city manager invited you to showcase your incredible work here. I guess I have a question, if you'll indulge me, about what would you want the residents of San Mateo to know about the homeless population in our city? I think there's a lot of misunderstanding and fear, as well as deep compassion and concern, and so I think it helps to hear from you all who have actually direct relationships with our homeless population, and can help bring some light and humanity and color to the stories that are here in our community.
I think that if we recognize a person as a human being, and we recognize them as our community, it kind of changes the approach. You know, it didn't always start and end at homelessness, it started somewhere. You know, more than likely, we are working with one of those individuals, and a lot of the times the community may say, oh, well, you know, they don't want help, but actually they are. It's just taking time. But really, at the end of the day, is just recognizing that they're human beings. Some want help, it just takes a long time. You know, a lot of them have trauma, a lot of them have experienced a lot of mental health and AOD, and it's a challenge. It's a full-time job to be homeless, and sometimes we don't understand that as a community. And sometimes we recognize them and we're saying, well, they don't want anything, but maybe they do. Maybe that's the reason why we approach these things with compassion, with consistency, in order to make those connections.
One thing we always talk about is that they didn't start their lives homeless. They have a story, they have a life, they have a previous employment, and when you start getting the trust from them and start talking about their history, it's pretty amazing what the history is. It's just like any other person's history. They went to school somewhere, they had a job, they have family. A lot of times they are interested in reuniting with their family, and it just takes some time to get that trust to start that process of reuniting. So people don't think about that. They make certain judgments maybe about what they see sometimes on the streets, but there's a whole story behind every one of our clients.
Thank you. I have a question to my council members. You know, a lot of you might know that our cops offer a ride along. Our hot team also offers a walk along. Has any of you? I've done a walk along. Have any of you taken them up on this? I hope you will.
Thank you for all you do. I don't really have anything to add other than, is there anything that we as a council can do to help you be more successful?
Well, I'm actually glad that you mentioned that because there was something I forgot in my presentation. But this is just more of a general, I forgot to mention during our journey that one of the things that we've always been interested in is getting a little more mental health assistance. And one thing that we're looking into currently, our department, is possibly the potential of maybe adding a mental health clinician to our team. And the reason why is that if you look at literally every client that we're dealing with who is repeatedly refusing services and refusing our offers for help, it's almost always a mental health reason behind it. And that's the tricky part of trying to get assistance for people. We just need more help in that area. So that was the future part I forgot to mention, that we are hoping in the future to add that expertise to our team.
And just to dovetail on that, we are seeking some grant funding to pursue that endeavor. So we're hopeful and crossing our fingers that that works out well.
Great, and the more data you collect, the stronger your case makes. Yep. So can we find out if there's any public comment to be made on this?
Yes, Madam Mayor. So I see we have 3 hands raised in our Zoom environment. Just to clarify, we are now moving to public comment for item number 3 on the special meeting, which is San Mateo Police Department Homeless Outreach Team presentation. If you wish to speak on this topic, please keep your hand raised. Otherwise, please lower your hand. We'll give you a moment to do so. Madam Mayor, I have 3 requests to speak. We set the timer at 3 minutes.
3 minutes, yes.
So our first speaker in chamber or in the Zoom environment will be Amir Rosenfield. Amir, please unmute your mic.
Good evening. I think I heard that we were speaking on item 3, specifically the Police Homeless Commission, that presentation that we just heard, correct?
That's correct.
Fantastic. I have spent 14 years now working with unhoused people. It is very rude to call them homeless. It's derogatory. Frankly, it should be considered a slur. I'm a social worker, and I have been for the entirety of the 14 years that I have been working with the unhoused people. Now, there are a variety of issues as to why, like the police officer said, that people do become unhoused. And you go ahead and you talk to them. They have regular stories. They've had regular lives. They just hit a speed bump sometimes in their life that they were unable to recover from. They weren't able to go ahead and accelerate their regular life back up to speed. They weren't able to hit that speed limit again. Now, whatever the issue was in the individual's life, whether it be just simply socioeconomic factors, perhaps it could be mental illness, it could be drug addiction, it could just be losing your job at the wrong time during a recession. The unhoused people are people as well, and I agree 100% with the police officer statements. You guys should get to go ahead and know these people. Stop judging a book by its cover. Just because you happen to see somebody who, you're going to upturn your nose at when you're walking by them during your daily shopping trips, that's a point of personal privilege that you need to check. Because this person could have been you, provided that you didn't have the opportunity that you did have. So I think everyone in the room who has ever done the whole nose upturn thing at an unhoused person needs to go ahead and check their white privilege. It's extremely inappropriate. It's classist, oftentimes sexist, considering 3 out of 4 homeless people are men, which is extremely discriminatory. And I think that we need to be looking at the root issue on how to solve the unhoused person's crisis. I think that the easiest way in San Mateo that we could go ahead and solve the unhoused person's crisis is not with an increase of housing. I think that our local police department and law enforcement officers should be contacting federal officers and deport all these beaners and Mexicans that are littering our streets, and maybe deport the niggers back to Africa that are committing all the crimes.
Stop.
Thank you.
Heil Hitler, white power, fuck nigger, fuck Jews, fuck
Thank you.
beaners,
Thank you.
fuck gooks, fuck you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam
Deputy
Mayor,
Clerk.
we may wish to take a brief recess.
Yes, I think
With
that's
some
a great-
additional hands raised.
Thank you very much. We will take a brief recess and reconvene shortly. All right, we are. All right, we are going to reconvene. We'd like to make a statement before we go back in. We in the city of San Mateo condemn hateful, anti-Semitic, Islamophobic, and racist speech in the strongest possible terms. At a time of rising anti-Semitism and hate speech, we do not stand for it. Hate speech can have real consequences. The country has had numerous mass shooting events including at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando in 2016, the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh in 2018, and the Poway Chabad in 2019, and many others. We embrace the rights of all individuals in our community to be who they are in terms of their sexuality, gender, religious orientation, and beliefs, and we always will do so. Deputy City Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And we will announce the last speaker in Zoom. Our last speaker will be Molly, Conger. We will take our next speaker, who will be Jose Castillo. Jose, please unmute your mic.
Hello, City Council. I would like to say that the last speaker bothered me very much. I liked what they were saying at the beginning, but I would like to say that that was very, very awful. What I would like to speak on today is the homeless problem that we're having and what the police can do to help. What I'm seeing is that we have a mass flood of these of these homeless people. And it's very, fuck you, nigger, fuck you. Don't cut me off, fuck you, nigger. You gonna let me talk?
Our next speaker will be Andy O'Brien.
Yes, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. And can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great, thank you. I'd just like to say that the police must be defunded. We have had nothing but problems with police state that we have managed to create. How can we have any trust in a system that is built on oppressing the people? I want to ask about this homeless crisis, how many beds could we afford if we just defunded the police 5%? If we defunded the police 20%? If we cut their budget in half, could we solve homelessness? Could we give everybody a bed and 3 meals a day? When they spend more time going after pro-life Catholics and those criticizing Biden than pursuing actual criminals, how can we trust them? If we cut the police budgets, we could solve the homeless crisis, get rid of qualified immunity, and start holding these criminals accountable. Law enforcement has little to do with serving and protecting. The Supreme Court has ruled they have no duty to actually protect anyone. Fuck the police.
And our final speaker will be Molly. Molly, please unmute your mic.
Hi, my name is Molly Conger. My goodness, I think that there are a few things that we need to do when it comes to the homeless and how the police are interacting with them. Personally, my husband is a police officer, and he has had several altercations with these homeless people. I mean, they're angry, and they have every right to be living in this situation. I believe that we are not doing enough for the homeless people. One thing that I think that we could do is provide more services, specifically health and mental health services. One thing I think that would be very honestly cheap for the city to do is help delouse the homeless. Specifically, one way that we could do this very cheaply is with Zyklon B. See, fun fact, more people have died of typhoid given by lice than they did during the Holocaust. And I find this very interesting that we have the ability to solve this issue and we're not. I think that we should set up showers, much like they had in Auschwitz.
Please address subject matter jurisdiction.
Yes. So I think that we would help our police officers not come home with lice, as my husband has several times. I'm on the verge of telling him to shave his damn head. So what I'm saying is we need to set up showers.
Thank you. Madam Mayor,
Where are we going to gas the Jews? Can we send the niggers back to Africa?
Happened. The Holocaust never happened, but it really.
Madam Mayor, that concludes public comment. I would just like to note the time. That clock is a little bit fast. It is
Send the
currently
niggers back to Africa.
7:07.
I would like to take this opportunity to say that
The Jews did 9/11.
Oy they turned my ear.
other and how we should be caring for each other. And your job is really the ultimate illustration of that. So thank you. However we can help you, please let us know. And we look forward to regular updates. So thank you very much for being here tonight. And with that, let's end our, yes, Councilmember Hedges.
I am so sorry you guys are doing such a wonderful job that you had to listen to this demented verbal abuse. And do not let that in any way stain the wonderful job you guys are doing. Thank you.
Right.
I would concur. We see a lot of ugliness in this work that we do, and just know that you both are lights in this community, and shine very bright, and your support to those who are so deserving and worthy of dignity. Your efforts are seen and appreciated from, I know, this council, and I hope that this tonight sheds more light on the excellent work that you're doing in the department and the ways that that you're holding up some of the most vulnerable in our community. And so I thank you for that. And while there is much ugliness in this world, know that you two are shining very bright, and we don't let anything overshadow that. So thank you.
That's right. Okay. Then I think Councilmember Lorraine.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Through the mayor. Thank you, David and Victoria, for being here. I join council members in apologizing for you having to deal with what just happened, and I apologize to the public for having to hear it. But I appreciate the comments council members are making to bring this back to what we were talking about, which is helping people. And thank you for all that you do. I've had the privilege of seeing you present a number of times now. I represent our council on the Housing Our People Effectively Interagency Council, or HOPE IAC. The HOT was a guest there. You folks are a shining example countywide. I got to tour the Vendome, and I feel like I'm gaining more of an appreciation for how much the city's been doing, and through you, taking things to the next level. I did want to share among the success stories that I happened to interact with the team on one that was a little too late breaking to share in the presentation, but someone called my council voicemail, and they may have called other council voicemails. I'm not trying to take any credit, but just to share what happened. I just shared a note with the team and asked, there was an older gentleman who just called and said he was living in his car and needed housing. And I asked our outreach team, what can we do for this person? And the team went out. They had to find this person. We didn't have an exact location. It was hard to reach this person, but I think, as has been mentioned in the presentation, they kept at it, and that just seems to be one of the themes of that work is, if at first you don't succeed, you keep trying until you make a breakthrough. And so this person was located, and just recently, Officer Asfor shared with me that this person found some housing and is now housed, and just for this team to be able to work with our partners and bring folks who need shelter, but all other kinds of services, and to be providing it to most people, many people in our city, daily, quarterly, yearly, is truly amazing, and I support you. Thank you.
All right, well, with that, we say thank you again, and we look forward to hearing of even more progress, and let us know how we can help. Thank you. Good evening. So we are going to end our study session now, and we'll need 10 minutes to transition over to the regular meeting. So thank you all for